Hey, what's going on? It's Jay from dUG Reviews, and I'm a bass player by trade. When I used to play professionally, the first bassist that I ever heard when we did a little bit of touring with him was a guy named Doug Pinnick from King's X, and it was the first bass sound that I heard that just kind of gave me the chills, and I went, wow, someday I want to kind of sound like that. Back when I was playing, I had a pretty massive rig, and I think a lot of my fellow bass player friends, a shout out to my buddy Steve Wilson, would comment like, how in the hell are you getting that sound? And I had a very unconventional rig. I had an old Sun 18-inch subwoofer with a folded horn, long throw. On top of that, I had two JBL Concert Series 12s and an old Gibson SG cabinet. That thing was a classic. And then on the other side of the drum riser, I would have an 810 old 1967 Ampeg cabinet with the 810-inch speakers on it, all being run from a Carvin 300 PB, I think it was called the PB 300 bass head, and I retrofitted a giant fan to go on the back. That 1 amp powered everything. If you are familiar with Carvin products, by the way, nothing they make is half-assed. They were very, very top of the line. Anyhow, I was trying to mimic that sound, and I know that Tech 21, I believe, is a company that has built some actual processors. I think you can actually maybe get it in a pedal now for the Doug Pinnick sound. I think it's just called the dUG amp or the dUG series. You got to go check it out. When I went to Guitar Center here in Reno, they looked at me like I was clueless when I mentioned anything about it. But this is what I can tell you from the Doug Pinnick sound, and going on tour with him back in the early 90s, right about Faith, Hope, Love era, if you're a King's X fan. And Doug had, he always used two Ampeg 810s on their side as his main rig, and he had a pedal board that he split the signal on, and I believe he had a bass that had stereo outs. It had two different 1/4-inch outs, so he would split the sound, or he maybe had a splitter on his pedal board. And on one side it was like chorus and a flanger and some funky effects, and on the other side he had like a distortion pedal. So he was able to split the sound, and on one side, or on one of the 810s, he had kind of a low, your typical bass sound, and then on the other 810, he had that crisp, distorted, kind of bright bass. And both of them alone didn't give you an incredible sound. It was a good sound. The high end, the distortion side by itself, probably not too good. But when you blend it in together, it was a really cool sound. I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about here. This might be sacrilege for a bass player to play out of a guitar rig, but this is it's a 412 cabinet with Celestians. Acoustic, so not a big dollar buy there. It is the nicer tube amp from Acoustic here, but that's a guitar rig, and yes, I'm throwing a bass guitar through it. I'm going through the Boss ME25. I'm using one of the factory presets in this. What I wanted to do is find something that was very clean, but had a little bit of that chorus and a slight bit of delay in it to give it that nice sound. And then I'm using the tube for the distortion on this side, splitting the signal because this has a stereo out, and sending the clean signal over here to this. Now this is kind of a crappy amp, maybe one of the better PVs that they made, but PV really not known for doing really crisp, clean stuff. And a Gallion-Kruger 410 cabinet there that's on wheels. It's a great little jam setup if you're just doing small local gigs. Pretty easy to haul around. Certainly, since my old rig we used to call it the coffin. It had no casters on it. It weighed about 400 pounds, and it was all fiberglass. It was kind of cool. So anyways, I'm going to play for you just what the raw sound sounds like coming out of that side over there. So you can hear that it's got that reverb on it, relatively clear, relatively clean, and I've got it pretty dialed down. I like to have a kind of a bright sound. I tend to use a pick than be a finger player, and all of my pickups are in the full-on position here. Of course, I can tone that down even further, by sweeping here and sweeping the back, so it's just nice and muted. But I like it to be a little on the crisp side. Mine is probably a little hairier than what Doug Pinnick even has, and then I'm going to turn up the sound over here so you get nice kind of stereo sound on both sides here. Now I'm going to engage the distortion over on the guitar amp here, and together they've got a really, really cool sound. that sound without the distortion on this one side is nowhere near as gutsy. So check it out, try it out. If you've got two of these rigs, see if you can split it. Again, this Boss ME25 is a relatively inexpensive pedal, probably a lot less expensive than the Tech 21 pedal that Doug Pinnick's got. It's 2Dudes Reviews.